my YouTube channel. My name is Hope and I am a photographer serving both Charleston and Savannah. And this YouTube channel is where I share education for photographers as well as a little bit of a peek into my life living in the Low Country. And I've never talked about this on my channel. I've been saying that a lot lately. We've been doing lots of new stuff, but I'm going to be talking about senior photography contracts. So I specialize in senior photography. I've been a senior photographer for a decade this month, which is insane. And I have learned a lot about what to include in your contract to protect both you and your client, but mostly to just make sure that expectations are clearly communicated and that you and your business are protected. I've learned a lot the hard way. So I have to give a preface of this video. I am not a lawyer. I'm not an attorney. I am not legally equipped to teach you how all of these things apply to your state, how they should be worded in your contract, and I am not telling you that these are the only things that you need in your contract. I'm not giving you legal advice. I am just giving suggestions of concepts and principles and things that I think need to be included in your contract in order to create a really good client experience and to protect you. So don't take this as law. Don't take this as legal advice. This is just suggestions of things that should be included. And even the verbiage I'm using isn't necessarily what needs to be in your contract, but I still think that you will find these suggestions helpful. So I'm going to walk through 5 things that I think that you need in every senior portrait photography contract. So a lot of these are going to apply to everybody and every type of photography contract, but there are a couple that are going to be specific to minors because senior portraits are typically for people that are not 18 yet, like 16, 17. So let's go ahead and dive into those 5 different kind of clauses or principles or concepts that need to be in your contract. And I'm literally looking at mine. So we're going to start from what I have in there first and kind of go from there. So I think the first and one of the most important things that I integrated into my photography business that applies to every type of photography service that I offer is a non-refundable retainer. So it's really important to use the word retainer and not down payment because down payment actually technically is legally refundable. So I require a 50% non-refundable retainer to book me for any service. I don't care if it's a portrait session, I don't care if it's a wedding day, I don't care what it is, if it's a speaking engagement, I require that 50% upfront. This means that date is blocked on my calendar and I am turning away other potential clients and income for that date. So if for any reason we have to cancel or move the date, with the exception of severe weather, or anything changes, that retainer remains mine. It's really important to have that clause in your contract. If you don't require some form of retainer upfront, I learned the hard way that your client does not take that booking seriously. Even if they've signed a contract, even if you have email exchanges or verbal exchanges confirming the date multiple times, if they have not put money down, the likelihood that they will not show up or cancel on you last second or ask to reschedule is vastly greater than if they have put money down because now they've taken it seriously and it is just as solidified in their calendar as it is in yours. So if you do not have this concept already in your business, I want you to do this first. You can just turn the video off because that needs to be your number 1 priority. Require a retainer of some type to hold your services and hold that time in your calendar. The second thing that I include in my contract is a cancellation policy, which is obvious. Everybody should have that. But the other thing that I include is a late arrival and rescheduling policy. So I also learned the hard way that sometimes seniors, they like to run a little bit late. They have a hard time finishing their hair and makeup. They are coming from school, so they're running a little bit behind. But the problem became that there was this kind of miscommunication or misunderstanding that once the sun sets, we can't shoot anymore. And because I photograph at golden hour, if we arrive 2 hours before the sun sets and you're 30 to 45 minutes late, all of a sudden we only have an hour and a half left to shoot and there's nothing I can do about that. The light is literally going to disappear. I could use OCF, sure, but that's not my type of photography. That's not my style that my clients have paid me for. So I have made sure that it is very clear in my contract that if you are late, you are cutting that time out of your session. You are literally just shortening your own client experience. And I also have it in my contract that if you're more than 15 minutes late, I have the right to leave. I've never done that. I have had a lot of times where my clients hit traffic, there's severe weather, there's things out of both of our control. I've never actually abided by that policy, but it is in my contract so that if for some reason I had a no-show client, I am protected if I were to leave because they didn't show up. The third thing that I have in my contract that I think every photographer needs, and especially with senior portraits, is a creative control and client usage clause. And this essentially tells my client what they are allowed to use their images for and that they are not allowed to edit them. And I will caveat this really quickly by saying I have a complete other video on this channel about my feelings about clients putting filters on their photos because I'm actually not very strict about this. So I have it in my contract, but I have a lot of leniency on this. The thing I'm more focused on here is what my clients are allowed to use their images for, what copyright means, and what I expect from them when sharing their images on social media. So essentially my contract says that if they're sharing, they aren't allowed to edit them and to please tag me in the caption. Again, I'm not super strict on this, but just gently including it in the contract does encourage them to think twice about it when they go to share their images. So I do include that in the contract, and it also states that they do have printing rights to the images. They can order professional quality prints and products through me, through their online gallery, or they do have the right to print wherever they want. That's a question that I get often, and I do give them the print release to those images. The fourth thing that's incredibly important to include, again, for any type of photography service, is a model release clause. This essentially gives you the right to share the images on your social media, on your website, on your portfolio, and gives you the right to basically use that client's face in your marketing strategy. So I always include this in the contract. However, the reason I mention it is because I get the question sometimes, what if a client asks you to take that out? Do you allow them to remove that from the contract? And the answer is yes. If a client for any reason likes to have privacy, or if I sometimes have a wedding client who has a high security job or a high security clearance and just doesn't want their photos all over the internet, it's important to remember that you are hired to document their special moments, their memories, their big day, their senior session, and it is your job to capture that for them, not for yourself and not for your own marketing capabilities. However, if somebody is modeling for me for free for a portfolio building opportunity, that is a completely different story. But that model release clause is just incredibly important to include, but more important than that is to serve your clients really well. The fifth and final thing to include, this is specific mostly to senior portraits, is to make sure to include a portion about them being a minor, and make sure you have mom or dad or whoever the guardian is sign the contract in addition to the senior. So legally, you really only need the guardian to sign, but I like to have the senior sign as well to basically make sure that they've seen it and just ensure that both of them understand all of these contract principles that I have outlined for them. But you want to make sure that you include some type of verbiage or principles or outline for what you expect from the parents. So legally, you actually do have to have the parent or guardian there for the entirety of the senior session because they are a minor. However, I'm not super strict about that. Some of my seniors are just really shy and they don't really want their parent there the whole time, but they do need to be present, and that does need to be in the contract that, hey, if the parent doesn't come, that's up to you, but legally they're required to be there, and making sure essentially that the parent is signing off on the minor being with you for the entirety of the senior session. So I hope this was helpful. I hope it was helpful to hear me kind of talk through what I think are some of the most important concepts to include in a senior portrait contract. The Legal Paige is one of my dear friends and also an incredible attorney and photographer that sells contracts and clauses and legal documents for small business owners. So I'm going to link her information down below. She's incredible. All my contracts are purchased directly through her. So if you're looking for resources and ways to purchase legal types of documents for your business, she's the way to go. I post new videos every single Monday. I would be so grateful to have you subscribe. My goal is to hit 10,000 subscribers this year, so let's see if we can make that happen. But thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll see y'all next week. Bye!